This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. Firefighters in Flin Flon are holding back the flames, but a clearer picture of the devastation outside the city is emerging. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, people are bracing for an extended evacuation.
The village of Garneau Beach, Saskatchewan, devastated by wildfire, homes and buildings destroyed. In nearby Creighton and on the Manitoba side of the border in Flin Flon, firefighters scramble to protect the two communities from the fast-moving flames.
We were able to rescue both our boats, but we've had to leave everything pretty much behind.
Seeing the damage in Garneau Beach hits too close to home for Leslie Beck of Flin Flon. The northern Manitoba city was evacuated a week ago, and the mayor says people will be out for a while. George Fontaine says no structures have burned, but the city is surrounded by fire on all four sides.
They are battling the fire directly on the outside of Creighton right now, which is, basically attached to Flin Flon.
And fire is spreading closer to other northern communities, prompting the town of Snow Lake to issue an evacuation alert. Mayor Ron Scott says people can leave now if they want.
The situation is evolving fairly quickly, and we may end up having to issue a mandatory evacuation order. Now, that hasn't happened yet. We want to get as many people the option of getting out of town with any big items as soon as possible.
In addition to living in Flin Flon, Leslie Beck's family has two cottages in the area she worries could be lost in the fire.
We're feeling just a bit disconnected with everybody because we aren't, we have lots of group chats and stuff and lots of good connections that way, but it would be nice if we just could, unpack our suitcases if we're going to be long-term away.
Flin Flon's mayor had concerns about running out of food for firefighters, but the province says there are systems in place to make sure crews get fed. And right now, Manitoba says there are no problems with food supply or preparation. The government also says reinforcements are on the way. There are now 62 firefighters here from Quebec and 100 expected from the U.S. this week. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The fire near Flin Flon has grown exponentially in the past week. It's now several times the size of the city of Winnipeg. CBC weather specialist Riley Lachuk explains how the fire grew.
At the beginning of May, the province looked like this. Although there are those small yellow stars that indicate a heat source, there was no significant fire activity at the start of May. As the month progressed, though, the weather in the province was warmer than usual and it stayed quite dry. And you can see that those conditions caused those hot spots to increase. Those red spaces you're seeing, that shows the perimeter of the fire that is already burning. I want you to keep your eyes on three particular areas of this map. Keep looking at the communities of Sheridan, Flin Flon, and Pucketawagan. Now let's stop here on May 28th. Let's go in closer. We can see the three fires in each community clearly burning now, and those fires continue to grow and grow, forcing nearby communities to evacuate. And now 3 separate fires near Sheridan, Flin Flon, and Pucketawagan, plus a 4th fire in Saskatchewan have now merged into one massive fire, so far burning an area almost 9 times the size of the city of Winnipeg. Riley Lachuk, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Almost everyone is out of Pimicikamak Cree Nation. Chief David Monia says the last Hercules left yesterday. Only about 6 people are left in the community. He says they can use boats to escape if they need to, and that more help is on the way.
And I heard that the province was also loaning us a fire truck. That would be great. And there's also a crew of wildfire fighters coming from the United States and helping us here to go fight the fires.
Monia says his people are working around the clock to find hotel rooms for his community members. A global organization that provides food in crisis situations is answering the call to help feed wildfire evacuees. World Central Kitchen is an American nonprofit. Peter Leto says when they arrived Sunday night, they went to the evacuee shelter at Leela Soccer Complex.
Immediately, you see 500 plus people staying in the shelter. I noticed there was food there, a lot of donations, but it was largely fast food, and they made it clear that they were looking for something a little more nourishing. So we had teams arrive. We have more teams arriving today, and we're trying to get people fed with just kind of locally made, locally sourced food.
Lito says in a situation like the war in Gaza, resources are cut off. They'd have to build a large-scale kitchen cooking hundreds of thousands of meals. He says Winnipeg has resources and a wonderful network of local chefs and restaurants to work with. The province is expanding eligibility for the measles vaccine again, this time for people forced from their community due to the fires. It now includes babies from 6 months to 11 months who have been evacuated from their homes. CBC's Alana Cole has the details.
Arriving in a new place, unclear when they'll be going home. With wildfires forcing people out of their communities, the province is making changes to who can get vaccinated against the measles.
It's about being responsible in terms of accessibility of public health resources. So evacuees, many of which are coming to communities, the Interlake being one example where we know we have cases of measles, we have a responsibility in terms of our public health to make sure that we are taking steps to protect the public.
The province says babies from evacuated communities between 6 months to a year old are now eligible for an early dose of a measles vaccine. It's a move the province made last month for infants who live or spend time in the Southern Health Region and the Interlake Eastern Health Region. Dr. Mahmoud Kodavezi is with Southern Health. So far, he's heard only a couple of families will be taken to the Winkler area. Winkler's Boundary Trails Health Center Emergency Department is the latest measles exposure site, according to the province.
We have concerns. We raised that there would be concerns about potential, increasing the number of measles cases, and when these people going back to their community in Northern, if they might incubate the infection, and when they go back, so there would be risk for them.
He says they are considering options for a pop-up clinic for the vaccine. That all depends on how many families end up in the area. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
As wildfires rage across Manitoba, let's not forget about the animals caught in this disaster. The Winnipeg Humane Society, with the support of Humane Canada, has opened a temporary animal shelter to care for the pets of evacuees. CBC's Zubina Ahmed stopped by the facility.
In the rush to house human evacuees from Manitoba's wildfires, the family pets are often forgotten. Now there's a temporary pop-up animal shelter at the St. Norbert Community Centre. Carly Peters from the Winnipeg Humane Society says it has the capacity to take in 60 animals.
You get your food and water and your enrichment, and that includes, cuddles from volunteers, but also like frozen Kongs or lick mats, regular walks, and exercise in the beautiful hockey rink that St. Norbert has provided for us as an exercise space for the animals.
Cara Hollick is the vet tech at Winnipeg Humane Society.
We'll assess them for any wounds or signs of dehydration. I'm assuming these animals are coming from a long commute and in very stressful situations. Anything that smoke inhalation or their signs of dehydration or distress.
Christina Von Schindler, CEO of the Winnipeg Humane Society, says over 40 volunteers are at the facility to look after the animals. They set up the shelter in 3 days and would create more if the need arises.
Everything else you're going through and all the stress and all the change, at the very least you can count that your pets will be safe, cared for, loved, and receive all the care we can offer them.
Schindler says evacuees need to register with the Red Cross to get their pets in. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Riley Lakechuk joins us now. And Riley, you've been tracking the winds here over all the forecasts that you've done following the wildfires. What's the strength of the winds today?
Well, March, we have started to see winds backing off, particularly in northern Manitoba. Have seen some gusts earlier in the day, upwards of 30 and 40 kilometers an hour, but you can start to see the shading starting to lighten up, and that indicates that the gusts are starting to get a little bit lighter, particularly in northwestern Manitoba. In north central sections, Thompson, Norway House, we still have seen some pretty strong winds today, and that has fueled a little bit of fire movement in the northwest. However, as we see winds dying off in the next couple of days here, I think that will help firefighters start to get a handle on things. But what we really need is some rain. I'll talk about that more in the long-range forecast. That northwesterly wind pushing some smoke toward the southeastern part of the province today. I know we've seen that in Winnipeg with some air quality concerns. Hazy again on Thursday, more of a smoky sky into parts of the Inner Lake and the Parkland once again. We'll talk about that much-needed rain and your weekend forecast when I come back.
Thank you very much, Riley.
You're welcome.
The province is facing criticism over a take-home exam for grade 12 French immersion students. This year's theme is free speech, and some feel an example inside took it too far. CBC's Matt Humphrey has more.
Some grade 12 French immersion students are allowed to opt out of a provincial exam this year after a school district raised concerns over an image inside the exam booklet. The take-home French language arts exam tasked students to think critically about free speech. One of the exercise choices is about the satirical French magazine Charlie Hebdo. The magazine caused controversy in 2011 by featuring an offensive caricature of the Prophet Muhammad, which is not allowed in Islam. That image was included in the exam booklet. The Islamic Social Services Association says it wishes the province reached out before using the image. Shahina Siddiqui says the exercise could pit students from different cultures against each other.
The damage has been done, right? And it's like making peers afraid of peers. That's what, in a school setting, you have now divided this youth. One will take it as, okay, this is not good. But the other will say who did it are not good. So you have done us and them again.
The Winnipeg School Division says it flagged the image as potentially offensive to the Department of Education and gave students the option to opt out. The province says it's in communication with all school divisions, saying in a statement the department requested that schools collect materials, redact the content in question, then return the materials to students. The Winnipeg School Division says opting out of the final exam won't hurt a student's final grade. It'll instead be based on classroom work and other assignments. Matt Humphrey, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The college that regulates nurses in Manitoba says some nurses are entering the field unprepared. Right now, some nurses can start working in Manitoba without having ever worked in Canada before. And the college says that's putting patient safety at risk. CBC's Ian Fraze has the details.
Some of Manitoba's newest nurses are struggling with the basics. The province's regulator for nurses says some tasks like taking blood pressure or administering medication are sometimes mishandled.
One example is applying a medication patch to an article of clothing as opposed to skin where it should be. So it's very basic nursing practice issues that have significant effects on patient safety.
Deb Elias is talking about a group of nurses benefiting from new labor mobility rules. She says some of them aren't prepared to work in Canada.
Substantial increase in complaints. We found that it's related to individuals who have, are registered in another jurisdiction but haven't practiced in recent years.
A nurse can now live in Manitoba but register in another province where it might be easier to get a license. 3 years ago, the government waived the requirement these nurses must have worked in Canada. The regulator says that meant some of these nurses lack qualifications.
And we know people are eager to get to work, but being eager and being ready to practice are two different things.
Back in December, the college reinstated that rule for Canadian experience until this spring when the province said no.
We have to be reasonable in how we welcome nurses back or welcome nurses to the front lines of our healthcare system.
Health Minister Zoma Asaguera says all complaints are being handled, but it's unfair to judge all these nurses, many who trained outside of Canada.
There are hundreds of internationally educated nurses who have come to Manitoba through that pathway who are successfully working on the front lines of our healthcare system and providing excellent patient care every single day.
The Nurses Union agrees with the regulator, saying without proper training, we're setting up some nurses to fail. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
An early forecast predicts the city of Winnipeg will run a deficit of nearly $19 million this year. That's about 1.3% of the budget. Higher overtime for emergency services and fewer permit fees is being partly blamed for the shortfall. Less snow in the early part of the year helps stave off further red ink. Officials say there's more than $21 million in the reserve fund, which will be enough to cover the balance. The Bank of Canada is holding its key interest rate at 2.75% for the second time in a row.
At this decision, there was a clear consensus to hold the policy rate unchanged as we gain more information.
Financial markets and economists widely expected the move as the central bank eyes how U.S. tariffs will impact the economy. Governor Tiff Macklem says uncertainty remains high, and in months to come, the bank will be less forward-looking than usual and more attuned to risk when it comes to future rate decisions. Riley Lachuk is a very busy man, always on the go, keeping track of the forecast. So what do you got, Riley?
Yeah, a little bit of rain in the forecast for parts of northern Manitoba. Some much needed rain, although maybe not in the amounts that we'd like.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we'll talk through it in the long-range forecast here. First, I want to show you satellite and radar. I was kind of rushing over because I was looking at the satellite and radar and a little bit of thunderstorm activity that started to pop up here in the last hour or so in the southwest corner. I mean, nothing much to worry about, but yes, there is some lightning in some of this, and it is still very dry out there. So just keep that in mind. I was just doing a couple of last-minute checks on that before I came on the air just now. As we head into the next couple of days, though, we will see the winds starting to die down as we get into Thursday. That's the good news for northern Manitoba. The other piece of that is that the winds will die down as high pressure sets in here, and that is really going to help limit that fire spread, even though we are looking at some of these fairly large fires still burning on the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border. So yes, the die down in wind is a good thing, but as we get into the weekend, that's when we start to get a little bit of relief into that rain-wise. You can see the leading edge of some of that starting to push in Friday afternoon. Again, is it as much as we'd like? Probably not, but as this front starts to move in into Saturday, this is when we have our best shot at some rain in the long-range outlooks. And this is just one model run at some of this, putting a fairly broad area of rain into southern Manitoba, into northern Manitoba. Unfortunately, as we get through the weekend, this just kind of dries up without giving us any real measurable accumulation. We'll talk about some of the numbers in just a moment here, but as we head toward the middle of next week, we do see a little bit more rain into southern Manitoba, not necessarily the regions that need it, even though much of the province does need a real good rain. So this takes us out into the next week or so here, looking at some of the numbers. I mean, 10 to 15 millimeters of rain, yes, we'll take some of this, particularly near Pimicikamak, but 2 to 5 millimeters, up to 10 millimeters in places like Flin Flon. Yeah, that maybe is, we'll take what we can get. We certainly could use a lot more, and it looks like that the models are starting to shift that rain a little bit further south here, and you can see into the Red River Valley looking at a good 15 to 30 millimeters over the next week. So we'll check on this again tomorrow once the model runs kind of refine themselves. Again, that's just one forecast model of what could happen in the next week. But as I mentioned, what you'll notice as we get into Thursday is that wind really dying down here, becoming very, very light as we get into the day on Thursday. But as we get into Friday, it starts to pick up again, more of a southerly flow this time, with those winds gusting up to 30 or 40 kilometers an hour into the weekend again. So for Winnipeg, another hazy one tomorrow, 24 degrees, 26 for Friday, Marge, and there's that rain that I'm tracking as we get toward the weekend.
Okay, we're going to let you catch your breath. Thank you,
Sounds
Riley.
nice.
Yeah. Here's a look at some of the wildfire smoke that settled over Winnipeg this morning. We have plenty more to come right after this. Stay with us. Lack of rain is worsening conditions in northern Saskatchewan as crews struggle to contain more than 20 active wildfires there. Hundreds of homes and structures have been destroyed so far. Further south, thousands of evacuees are wondering when they can return home and what they may find when they do. Alexander Silberman reports.
Hundreds of people are continuing to arrive at this evacuation center in search of a warm meal and a place to sleep. Volunteers are cooking up bowls of chili and hot dogs, and the gym is lined with cots as people try and get a bit of rest. Many of the people filling this building are evacuees from L'Orange, watching from afar as fire tears through their community. Wildfire has now destroyed more than a dozen homes. The local hardware store, a total loss. Next door, an iconic trading post home to hundreds of Indigenous artifacts.
Not even doing a damn thing.
Also destroyed.
The fires create their own storms.
This tired firefighter arrived in the early morning in need of a break from the front lines. He says conditions became so dangerous from exploding propane tanks, his team had to move to safety and watch homes burn to the ground in nearby Sucker River.
You kind of feel helpless because you have your senior leaders that are telling you to back off and you want to go fight it, but you know, it's just a helpless situation.
We cry, hey? That's our home.
In a Prince Albert parking lot, this family from L'Orange is sleeping in a car.
I hope my town gets better.
Their lives now reduced to a suitcase and a few shopping bags.
We're all grieving as a community. We got to be here together. We have each other. Hey?
Yes.
We'll get through it.
Hundreds of kilometers northeast in Denair Beach, fire is continuing to destroy large parts of the community. Aggressive flames burning entire streets to the ground. Evacuees are now waiting it out, watching through photos and videos as the battle to protect their homes continues on the ground. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Prince Albert, Saskatchewan.
Some sad news to report. Former Liberal minister and astronaut Marc Garneau has died at the age of 76. Representing Westmount riding, he served as Minister of Foreign Affairs and Minister of Transport in Justin Trudeau's government. Garneau was also the first Canadian astronaut to go into space in 1984 in the Challenger shuttle. Garneau died of cancer. He was surrounded by his wife Pamela and his 4 children. Prime Minister Mark Carney is facing pressure to retaliate against the U.S. Donald Trump doubled his global tariffs on aluminum and steel imports to 50% overnight. But Carney says he's not responding just yet. Ashley Burke has the latest from Ottawa.
The Prime Minister negotiating with the U.S., but not spared from Trump's escalating trade war on the world.
The latest tariffs on steel and aluminum are unjustified, they're illegal, they're bad for American workers, bad for American industry, and of course for Canadian industry as well.
Carney says it's bad, but not personal, and isn't striking back yet.
The American action is a global action. It's not one targeted at Canada. So we will take some time, but not more, before we respond.
During question period, the Conservatives took aim.
While other countries have got deals to lower their tariffs, not only has the PM failed to do that, but he's got Canada's tariffs doubled on steel and aluminum. He promised he was the man with the plan. He can't even get a deal.
We are in intensive negotiations with the Americans and in parallel preparing reprisals if those negotiations do not succeed.
Canada's U.S. Trade Minister and the ambassador in Washington Tuesday trying to land a deal to get tariffs lifted. The government says those talks are progressing, so it's not retaliating today.
These tariffs have been foreshadowed for some time. What we need is not time or not deliberation, we need action.
Carney's facing pressure to fight back with force.
We can't sit back and let President Trump steamroll us, try to shut down our steel industry, take jobs down to the U.S., is no regard whatsoever for jobs here in Ontario, and we need to slap another 25%.
That call for reciprocal tariffs coming from industry groups too.
We have 23,000 steel jobs in this country that will be impacted within the next couple of days.
But the Liberals say they need more time.
Why not dollar for dollar tariffs today?
It is an important question. We have had really strong counter tariffs against the Americans already. We are looking at different scenarios right now, and we will take a decision, but we need a bit more time right now, not too long.
Kearney is trying to keep negotiations going, but is up against the challenge of responding to Trump's tariffs without aggravating him more. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now, Canada is a major supplier of steel and aluminum to the U.S. With 50% tariffs on imports of those into the U.S. now in effect, the communities that produce them are bracing for an even greater impact on the economy. CBC's Jamie Strachan reports.
Hamilton, Ontario, steel town, a city already facing economic pressures, now a whopping 50% tariff on its biggest industry. Another blow.
I don't have issues with the states or whatever, you know. Anytime I've been down there, people are great, this and that. I think it's just one fool making life difficult for thousands, millions of people.
The development hitting a nerve, not just for steel workers, but also the community at large.
Relations will never, ever come back to what they were.
The frustration has some hoping these tariffs might somehow revitalize the industry.
Canadian steel is noted worldwide for quality. So there's no effort selling it. And if you have a bigger market, you're going to have more employees, you're going to have a bigger workforce. So, like I said, in a warped way, what Trump has caused is for Canada to grow stronger.
A possible solution looking beyond the U.S. and expanding exports to other nations. But until then, the impact of the entrenched U.S. trading partnership will be felt deeply by Canadian steel manufacturers.
50% makes it a whole new ballgame that will put us over the edge.
The Steel Association says the industry had just started to calibrate to a 25% tariff.
We were able to start to resume relationships and trade a little bit. Now all of a sudden, again, this just throws another wrench into it.
800 kilometers away in Sault Ste. Marie, the mood is equally gloomy, where Algoma Steel is the city's largest employer.
When Algoma hurts, home improvement stores hurt, grocery stores hurt, retailers hurt, restaurants hurt, and that's going to be the case if these steel tariffs are in place for any significant period of time.
A similar story in Quebec, North America's biggest aluminum producer, also hit by 50% tariffs. Industry leaders there say this latest round will virtually end shipments to the U.S.
Very few companies have that kind of margins, to absorb a 50%, even at 25%. Some were hanging on, but they were willing to do it for a short period, expecting the tariffs to go back.
Part of this roller coaster tariff narrative. What is next? Up or down? Rollback or exemption? Who knows? Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
Aid distribution sites in Gaza have been closed after several Palestinians were killed this week. Gaza officials say Israeli forces opened fire on people scrambling for food and supplies. Briar Stewart looks at the push to improve safety before humanitarian operations resume.
Smoke rises beyond the tents in Gaza City. But in the middle of the night, this was the site of a deadly airstrike, killing several people sheltering here, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. Where do we go? We're dying of hunger every day, and there's also bombing, said this man. Since Sunday, Gaza health officials say more than 60 have been killed while crowded near one of the few aid distribution sites in the south. I couldn't get aid, said Yasser Abu Jarrah. I ended up carrying people out. Israel's military has denied reports that it fired on civilians, but said that on Tuesday it fired on what it called suspects who strayed from a designated route. There have been calls for an independent investigation.
It is deeply disturbing that these incidents happened near the New Gaza Humanitarian Foundation distribution sites.
The controversial U.S.-backed group distributing aid said it was temporarily closing its centers on Wednesday and would work with the IDF to develop new measures to improve civilian safety and risk reduction in one of the most complex humanitarian environments in the world.
You see this like desperation.
Denise Pott, then, a Canadian nurse working for Doctors Without Borders, spoke to CBC News from Rafah in Gaza, where through a shaky phone connection, she described what she sees on the streets as she drives to hospitals and clinics.
Really overcrowded and just in a more and more desperate situation every day, and you feel that tension.
The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is supposed to start handing out food again Thursday at a few sites, but the group continues to face criticism for forcing people to travel long distances and further endangering them by creating large crowds. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
A stampede in southern India has killed at least 11 people and injured more than 40. The crowd surge happened at a cricket stadium celebrating a popular team's tournament victory. Thousands of people gathered outside, tried to push through gates to get inside for the main event. The team had given away free passes to fans through their website. The organizers called the incident unfortunate. The ceremony did carry on in the stadium despite the chaos outside. A delicate operation to defuse 2 Second World War bombs led to the evacuation of 20,000 people from the downtown core of a major city in Germany today. The American-made bombs were discovered in Cologne on Monday. The evacuation is described as the city's largest operation since 1945. Finding bombs from the Second World War is not unusual in German cities, but officials say the newly discovered bombs are particularly large and dangerous. For now, Norway House's worry isn't fire, it's smoke. And for the residents of a long-term care center there, that's become too much. The Canadian military called in to help with an advanced medical team on board its Hercules. They gave CBC access to their critical mission, getting the neediest out of harm's way. Our chief correspondent, Adrian Arsenault, brings us that story.
Hard enough to get people out when you have to worry about getting in. The flight crew from 8 Wing Trenton trying to land in Norway House know this is tricky. Thick smoke, high winds, a short gravel runway. But it works, and is their arrival ever welcome? Inside the tiny terminal, among those evacuating, more than a dozen residents from a long-term care home. Most have dementia. All are getting out, with care workers right beside them every disorienting step.
We've tried to take care of them. We get them to relax, and we're trying to explain to them what they're doing on the plane, and but most of them, it's hard. Of course. Understanding is a barrier.
The workers leaving their own families behind so they can be with these most vulnerable people. What about your own family?
They're at home right now, so I don't know what's going to happen to them maybe. And if they're going to get evacuated, I'm not sure. So.
It's a lot of stress to have. The threat here in Norway House right now isn't necessarily the fire itself. It's the thickening, choking smoke.
Home's name is Pinawachi.
Councillor Dion Clark says all these residents are heading to a Winnipeg care home that's owned by Norway House, so they will all be cared for, must be cared for.
I'm thankful for our staff and for the understanding of the families of our residents. They understand we got to protect our elders. They're our knowledge keepers. We want to keep them around and make sure they're healthy.
Clark shared some videos with us from their facilities, anticipating that the fires could get closer and more severe. They've been cutting trenches, soaking what they can, but there may be only so much they can do.
We're trying our best to be proactive to fight the fire.
Man, you got a lot going on.
Yes, we can't wait around. We got to make sure we do the extra steps ourselves.
And the people in this room represent an exhausted community that has taken in thousands from fire-affected areas, fed, clothed, and housed them all, including the Spence family from Cross Lake.
What about you?
This is a family of 7 who fled with all their belongings in a camper van, but after a few days here, they've been told they're on a list to go to Niagara Falls, Ontario, with just a few bags and lots of questions.
Hopefully everything works out for us.
Niagara Falls is a long way from home, though.
It is. It really is. Yeah, it's new to us. It's new to everybody. It's new to a lot of people from my home community don't even leave the town. So everybody's in panic mode, it's shocked, don't know what to do.
They have to move fast here. There are more evacuations to do this day, but this is not a fast process. It requires patience. All of these people require caring and some extra kindness. Hard to imagine what this feeling would be like from their perspective.
Hello?
Hello. So what are you about to do? You gonna get on a big plane?
You meet the Hercules?
In the Hercules. Yeah. Oh yeah. Are you excited?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Let's go, baby. Pretty easy to see how 5-year-old Colton Forbister is taking it all in.
Yay!
To be able to fly on a big, noisy Hercules, definitely fun if you're little and don't really yet understand why this is happening. But for everyone else, the stress is real. The long-term care residents may have a place to go to, but where the support workers and others are going is less clear. So not only are they trying to get people from the long-term care residents out with the Hercules, but that's a medevac plane that is here to take some of the more vulnerable who can't handle a trip like this one. Earplugs on all. Medical staff at the ready, checking on all of them. And a ride that will be a first for most. Whether this becomes a pattern in their lives over the summer and the summers ahead may be entirely out of their hands.
Smoke from the western wildfires is an ongoing health concern. It has been blowing east and south all this week, even crossing the Atlantic Ocean. The fire zones in the northern prairies are, of course, getting the worst of it. Air quality warnings and alerts are in place in dozens of communities, not only in Manitoba, but throughout Saskatchewan, Alberta, and extending into Ontario. Authorities in the United States are also again warning of unhealthy conditions, especially across the upper Midwest. And that's what we're going to talk about here with CBC weather specialist Riley Lachuk. Stepping out today here in Winnipeg, you could just smell the smoke, Riley.
You could taste it at times. It
Yeah.
was another very smoky day. At times, I mean, the air quality did kind of come in and out on that scale as we got through the day today. And that's what we can expect as we get through tomorrow as well. Taking a look at the Air Quality Health Index today in Winnipeg, we were at that 10 plus, which is in that very high range, meaning when you can taste it like that, it's a good idea to limit the amount of time that you spend outdoors if you can, especially knowing that people at this time of the year and all times of the year really work outside. Tomorrow, as we get into the day, looking at that falling to about a 5 through the afternoon, but not to say that we won't have times where it's a little bit smokier across southern Manitoba once again tomorrow, particularly through the southern Interlake and even into parts of northwestern Ontario. So looking at that forecast, surface smoke, as the winds die down, this smoke plume just kind of sits over Norway House, Pimicikamak, does start to drift a little bit further north as we get into the day on Friday through Thompson and Flin Flon. So those are the places where you'll really want to be careful. I know air quality has been an ongoing concern in northern Manitoba, but particularly as we get into Friday and those winds start to die down and shift to a more southerly flow, that's going to push a lot more of that further to the north in our province. So temperatures right now at 20 degrees. We hit 21 and a half this afternoon in Winnipeg, 21 in Brandon at the moment, Swan River at 19, Thompson at 9 degrees, where we have some of those cloudier skies, those smokier skies that tends to hold temperatures back because we can't get some of that heat from the sun. So cooler conditions in the north, not a bad thing. It's also helping that firefight in parts of northern Manitoba. Overnight temperatures look like this: 5 degrees in Brandon, Verdun, Melita, 3s in both Dauphin and Swan River. Fairly seasonal temperatures through the Red River Valley into northwestern Ontario. Mostly clear skies, maybe a few clouds hanging around with the risk of an isolated shower or two through the evening tonight. Looking at 3 in the Pas, OCN, 3 degrees in Thompson, 4 degrees in Gillam overnight. Looking at double digits tomorrow, starting to warm up again. There's a bit of a ridge building in the west that will start to shift itself a little bit further to the east as we get through the day. That's going to allow temperatures to elevate a little bit into the northwestern part of the province. 19 in Grand Rapids, 14 in Gillam. Maybe a few scattered showers out of some of this cloud cover, but that's really all I've got for precipitation in the north for the next 24 hours anyway. Into the south, looking at 22s and 23s for the most part, mostly sunny skies for the day. And again, you'll want to make sure that you are mindful of those air quality concerns as we get through the afternoon march.
Thank you very much, Riley.
You're welcome.
A 6-year-old boy from Nova Scotia has gained membership into one of the world's most exclusive clubs. Elijah Moti is now one of 50 people in the province to be accepted into Mensa International. CBC's Preston Mulligan reports.
Like a lot of 6-year-old boys, Elijah Moti likes to play some soccer with his dad. What's different about Elijah, though, is that when he was a toddler, he taught himself how to read and write.
We had magnets on the fridge, and he would spell words with them. And we would turn around and think, who spelled this word on the fridge? And we'd just be asking questions, and we'd be watching him and making little videos of him recording, putting words on the fridge, numbers.
Elijah's family made videos like this one as mementos, but also to document his behavior. His mother says eventually she and her husband wanted to find a way to support their gifted child, so they turned to Mensa, an international society for people who score in the top 2% of standardized intelligence tests. The organization only tests people who are 14 and older, so Elijah's parents had him tested by a psychologist with test results certified by Mensa. His dad says he wasn't surprised at his success.
Knowing how he was with math and his intelligence level, we were confident that he would meet that requirement.
And Elijah is happy to share what he likes most about school.
Math by solving questions, gym by running around, and the library with reading.
Being a member of Mensa won't automatically open doors. Other members, like Barry Schmidl, say what it does is help gifted kids and adults find their peers.
If you're part of 1/50th of the population, it's going to be hard to find people like you, and this provides that. And we have members from 4 years of age to somebody's about to turn 100.
Elijah's mom says the community of people in Mensa will help her support her gifted son, and she says she's learned it's important for all parents to advocate for their children, no matter their skill level. Preston Mulligan, CBC News, Bedford.
We have some bittersweet news to share with you about a familiar face at CBC News. Morning Live host Heather Hiscox is saying goodbye after hosting the News Network program for 20 years.
It's kind of a profound moment to say something so final publicly for the very first time. And there's a torrent of emotion that accompanies that, of which the strongest by far is gratitude. Deep, abiding gratitude.
Heather's last day on air will be on November 6th. Before she says goodbye, viewers will have a chance to meet her as she takes CBC Morning Live on the road.
All right, well, Thursday not looking like a bad day to take the pup for a walk. I know Marge is really looking forward to this one. This is Sachi, also from Marge, not the same one, but a different one. Thank you for sending this picture, and you can send yours to talkback@cbc.ca. Based on Marge's expression on her face right now, I can tell that she loves this segment. So there you go, 24 degrees, maybe mid-hazy in the afternoon tomorrow in Winnipeg. Just keep that in mind if you're heading out for a walk tomorrow, that you could be running into a little bit of smoke at times. 26 for Friday, 25 with some showers moving through. Then you'll notice a cold front moves through as we get into Sunday. That pulls our temperatures down and brings us some much needed rain through the weekend for southern Manitoba. 22 on Monday and climbing back up to 28s for Tuesday and Wednesday. Well, with the Stanley Cup Finals getting underway, some of the Edmonton Oilers have a real home ice advantage as they host the Panthers for games 1 and 2.
That's because ice was collected from the home rinks of several Oilers players from across Canada. Have a look at our daily lift. This is ice being scraped from the Magna Centre in Newmarket, Ontario, home of Oilers captain Connor McDavid. Forward Ryan Nugent-Hopkins will be skating on ice from his childhood rink in Burnaby, BC. Some also came from the rink in Winnipeg, where Calvin Pickard practices during the off-season. But it's what happened next that organizers of the project believe will make the real difference.
So all of those containers of ice were shipped to Rogers Place, where the Oilers play. The contents were then added to the water mixture used by the ice resurfacing equipment, the effort being compared by some to the lucky loonie that had melted into the ice at the 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City, when Canada topped the U.S. for gold. And maybe we can do it again. Even if it's not the Jets, maybe we can do it again.
Yes, it is. It is bittersweet, we want to bring Stanley
Yes,
home.
We do.
Good luck to the Oilers. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good evening.